Hey everyone, Sarah here. Rewind Justice brings you revenge stories that will blow your mind. If you're ready, hit subscribe and let's go.
Standing in that courthouse hallway at 8:47 a.m., watching my parents exchange confident smiles with Judge Harold Brennan, I felt absolutely nothing. No anger. No betrayal. Just the cold certainty that comes from having irrefutable evidence and the federal government on your side. My father checked his Rolex, a gift from the judge, I'd later learn, and patted my mother's hand. This will be over by lunch. Then we can finally move forward without her interference. They were suing me for $8.4 million. Money they claimed I'd stolen from the family business. Money that was actually mine, legally owned, meticulously documented, and completely legitimate. But they had Judge Brennan. And they thought that was enough. They were wrong. The backstory. I grew up in Greenwich, Connecticut, in a family that valued exactly two things: money and the appearance of respectability. My father, Richard Caldwell, built Caldwell Financial Services from a small investment firm into a mid-sized wealth management company worth approximately $340 million. My mother, Patricia, managed the social connections that brought in high-net-worth clients. I was their only child, and from age 12, they made it clear what they expected: join the family business, marry well, produce heirs, and never question their authority. I had different plans. At 18, I went to MIT for computer science. Dad was furious. "We don't need a programmer. We need a finance professional." "Then hire one," I said. I did well at MIT. Extremely well. By my junior year, I'd developed a proprietary algorithm for analyzing market trends that caught the attention of several tech companies. By senior year, I'd incorporated my own company, Sentinel Analytics, and licensed the algorithm to 3 major financial firms. I graduated at 22 with a company worth $12 million. My parents' reaction was not pride. It was anger. "You used family connections," Dad accused at my graduation dinner. "Our clients, our reputation." "I used my own work," I corrected. "None of your clients are involved. Different market entirely." Mom's lips thinned. "You're embarrassing us. Running around playing entrepreneur when you should be learning the real business." The real business. Caldwell Financial Services. I'd seen their books during college breaks when Dad insisted I learn the family trade. What I saw disturbed me: aggressive fee structures that bordered on predatory, clients steered toward high-commission products regardless of suitability, and accounting practices that lived in the gray area between legal and fraudulent. I wanted nothing to do with it. For 6 years, I built Sentinel Analytics into a $180 million company. I hired brilliant people, secured contracts with Fortune 500 firms, and developed a reputation for ethical business practices and innovative solutions. I was featured in Forbes 30 Under 30, invited to speak at tech conferences, and offered board positions at companies I respected. My parents attended exactly 0 of these events. They were too busy telling their country club friends that I was going through a phase and would eventually come back to the real family business. Then Grandpa died. The secret success. Grandpa Thomas was Dad's father, a quiet man who'd started Caldwell Financial Services in 1974 with nothing but intelligence and integrity. Over the years, I'd watched my father transform Grandpa's honest firm into something else entirely. Grandpa noticed too. In his final year, Grandpa set up a trust, $15 million, held separately from the business, to be distributed to me upon his death. He didn't tell my parents. He told me during one of my weekly visits to his care facility. "Your father changed the business," Grandpa said, his voice weak but clear. "Made it about taking, not serving. You're different, Caroline. You build things that matter. This money is yours. Use it well." He died 3 months later. The trust documents were airtight, prepared by his personal attorney, not the family's usual lawyers. My name, my control, no contingencies. When the will was read, Dad's face went purple. "This is a mistake. That money belongs to the business. To the family." The estate attorney shook his head. "The trust is explicit and legal. Ms. Caroline Caldwell is the sole beneficiary." I took the money and invested it in expanding Sentinel Analytics. We opened an office in San Francisco, hired 30 new employees, and secured a government contract worth $53 million over 3 years. My parents stopped speaking to me entirely. For 2 years, silence. Then they sued. The inciting incident. The lawsuit arrived via courier on a Tuesday morning. My parents were suing me for $8.4 million, claiming I had misappropriated funds from Caldwell Financial Services during my college years, used proprietary family business information to build Sentinel Analytics, stolen client lists and trade secrets, damaged the Caldwell financial reputation through reckless business practices. Every allegation was false. Demonstrably, documentably false. But that wasn't the point. The point was the judge, Honorable Harold Brennan, Superior Court of Connecticut, and my father's golf partner for 15 years. I hired Catherine Vance, one of New York's top litigation attorneys. When I showed her the case assignment, she frowned. Judge Brennan is hearing this. You know him. I know his reputation. He's been investigated twice for ethical violations. Nothing stuck, but... She looked at me carefully. Your father and Judge Brennan are close. Very close. Country club, golf outings, charity boards. Catherine's expression hardened. Then we need to be very, very careful. And very well prepared. I had something better than preparation. I had suspicions. And I had resources that I hired a private investigation firm, not a local one, but a DC-based company that specialized in financial crimes and corruption. I gave them one task: follow the money between my parents and Judge Brennan. 3 weeks later, the lead investigator, Marcus Chen, sat in my office with a folder that would change everything. Ms. Caldwell, what I'm about to show you is evidence of federal crimes. Once you see this, you'll need to report it to the FBI. Are you prepared for that? Show me. He opened the folder. Wire transfer records. Offshore account statements. Property deeds. A paper trail documenting $2.3 million in payments from my parents to Judge Harold Brennan over the past 8 years. The money flowed through shell companies, offshore accounts in the Cayman Islands, and real estate transactions designed to look legitimate. But Marcus had unraveled it all. The condo in Aspen purchased through a shell company owned by my father, sold to a holding company that Judge Brennan controlled. The consulting fees paid by Caldwell Financial to a non-existent firm that routed money to the judge's offshore accounts. The yacht slip fees, the country club memberships, the wire transfers disguised as investment returns. $2.3 million in bribes, spanning nearly a decade. How many cases? I asked quietly. Marcus flipped pages. We identified at least 14 cases where Judge Brennan ruled in favor of parties connected to your father. Business disputes, contract cases, 2 divorce proceedings where Caldwell Financial clients received favorable asset divisions. This goes beyond my case. Way beyond. This is systematic corruption. I called the FBI that afternoon. Within 24 hours, I was sitting in a federal building in New Haven, walking Special Agent Rachel Morrison through every piece of evidence. She listened, made notes, asked sharp questions. Ms. Caldwell, you understand that if we pursue this, your case against your parents becomes secondary to the federal investigation. I understand. And your parents will likely face criminal charges beyond just bribery. Tax evasion, wire fraud, potentially RICO charges if we find this connects to other activities. They made their choices, I said. I'm just providing evidence. Agent Morrison studied me. Most people would want revenge. You seem calm. I'm not doing this for revenge. I'm doing it because it's right. Judge Brennan has been corrupting the judicial system for years. My parents enabled it. That needs to stop. All right, she said. Here's what happens next. The preparation. The FBI moved quickly but quietly. They opened a full investigation into Judge Brennan and my parents, using my evidence as the foundation. They traced every transaction, interviewed witnesses, and built a case that went far beyond what Marcus had uncovered. Meanwhile, my parents' lawsuit proceeded. I filed responses denying all allegations, submitted evidence proving every claim false, and prepared for trial. Catherine warned me repeatedly about the judge. He's going to rule against you on everything. Every motion, every objection, every procedural question. He's already compromised. I know. Then why are we bothering with a defense? Because when the FBI moves, I want the record to show I did everything right. I want there to be no question that I had legitimate defenses and the judge ignored them. She understood. We built the most thorough defense possible, knowing it probably wouldn't matter in Brennan's courtroom but would matter enormously to the federal prosecutors. 2 weeks before trial, my father called. First time in 2 years. Caroline, we should talk. Through attorneys, Dad. This doesn't have to go to trial. You could settle. Return the money Grandpa gave you, plus half of what your company is worth. We'll drop the lawsuit. No. Caroline, be reasonable. Judge Brennan is a fair man, but he knows the facts. You took money that belonged to the family. He's going to rule accordingly. Judge Brennan, I said carefully, is going to do whatever you paid him to do. Silence. Then, what did you say? I said no to your settlement. See you in court, Dad. I hung up. My hands were shaking, but not from fear. From anticipation. The FBI's timeline was perfect. They planned to move the day of the trial. Maximum impact, maximum evidence, and they'd catch both the judge and my parents in the act of corrupting the judicial process. Agent Morrison called the night before trial. We're ready. Your job is to proceed normally. Present your defense. When the moment comes, we'll handle the rest. How will I know? Trust me. You'll know. The confrontation scene. Trial day arrived. September 23rd, a Tuesday. I met Catherine outside the courthouse at 8:30 a.m. We went through security, headed to the courtroom on the 3rd floor. My parents were already there, standing in the hallway with their legal team, 2 attorneys from Hartford's most expensive firm. Dad wore his power suit, navy with thin pinstripes. Mom wore pearls and a pale blue dress that screamed respectable victim. They saw me and smiled. Dad approached, keeping his voice low enough that only our small group could hear. The judge already ruled in our favor, he whispered, his eyes gleaming with certainty. Friends in high places, Caroline. You should have learned that connections matter more than being right. Mom smiled, that thin, satisfied smile I'd seen 1,000 times growing up. You never had a chance, sweetheart. Harold's been a family friend for 15 years. Did you really think he'd rule against us? I said nothing. Just looked at them calmly, then walked past into the courtroom. Catherine leaned close. Your parents just confessed to bribery in a courthouse hallway. I know. The FBI is recording everything. We took our seats at the defense table. I opened my briefcase and removed a folder, a copy of the evidence package I'd given to the FBI. Exhibit A: wire transfer records, offshore account statements, property deeds. All of it. The bailiff called court to order. All rise. The Superior Court of Connecticut is now in session, the Honorable Harold Brennan presiding. Judge Brennan entered, his black robes flowing. He was 63, silver-haired, distinguished-looking. He smiled at my parents as he took the bench. Didn't even glance at me. Please be seated, he said. We're here for Caldwell versus Caldwell, case number 2024 CV 8847. Plaintiffs are seeking $8.4 million in damages for alleged misappropriation and theft. Are both parties ready to proceed? My parents' attorney stood. Ready, Your Honor. Catherine stood. Ready, Your Honor. Excellent. Judge Brennan shuffled papers. I've reviewed the pleadings. Before we begin testimony, I want to address several pretrial motions. For the next 20 minutes, he ruled on every single motion in my parents' favor. My motion to dismiss, denied. My motion to exclude certain evidence, denied. My motion for summary judgment based on documented proof of earnings, denied. Catherine objected repeatedly. Each time, Judge Brennan overruled her with barely disguised contempt. My parents smiled at each other. Their attorneys looked smugly confident. Then Judge Brennan said, "Now, let's proceed with opening statements. Counsel for plaintiffs." My parents' lead attorney, Donald Richardson, stood and launched into a dramatic narrative about how I'd betrayed my family, stolen their business secrets, and built my success on their foundation. It was fiction, but he delivered it convincingly. When he finished, Judge Brennan nodded approvingly. "Thank you, Mr. Richardson." Counsel for defendant. Catherine stood. Your Honor, before we proceed with opening statements, the defense would like to submit a new exhibit for the court's consideration. Judge Brennan frowned. This is highly irregular. What exhibit? Exhibit A, Your Honor. Financial records that are directly relevant to this case. I walked the folder to the bailiff. He carried it to Judge Brennan's bench. The judge opened it casually, expecting routine bank statements. His face changed immediately. Color drained. His hands started shaking. What? Where did you get this? Your Honor, Catherine said clearly, those are wire transfer records documenting $2.3 million in payments from the plaintiffs, Richard and Patricia Caldwell, to offshore accounts controlled by you over the past 8 years. Payments routed through shell companies, disguised as consulting fees and real estate transactions, but ultimately traceable to your personal benefit. The courtroom erupted. My parents' faces went white. Richardson jumped to his feet. Your Honor, this is absurd. These are fabricated. They are authenticated by forensic accountants and verified by federal investigators, Catherine said calmly. Every transaction is documented, dated, and traceable. Judge Brennan stood, his face purple now instead of pale. This is contempt. I'm holding you in contempt. That's when the doors opened. FBI Special Agent Rachel Morrison entered, flanked by 4 additional agents. Behind them, 2 U.S. Marshals. Your Honor, Agent Morrison said, her voice carrying through the silent courtroom, I'm Special Agent Rachel Morrison, FBI. I have a warrant for your arrest on charges of bribery, corruption, wire fraud, and conspiracy to obstruct justice. Judge Brennan grabbed the bench for support. This is a mistake. It's not. Agent Morrison approached the bench. We've been investigating you for 6 months, Your Honor. We have extensive evidence of your acceptance of bribes in exchange for favorable rulings. The evidence Ms. Caldwell just submitted is only part of a much larger case. She turned to my parents. Richard and Patricia Caldwell, you're also under arrest for bribery, wire fraud, tax evasion, and conspiracy. Dad stood abruptly. You can't do this. We haven't done anything wrong. You paid a judge $2.3 million to fix legal cases, Agent Morrison said flatly. That's federal corruption. And it's just the beginning of what we've found. The other FBI agents moved forward. One read Judge Brennan his Miranda rights while fitting him with handcuffs, a surreal image, a judge in robes being arrested in his own courtroom. 2 others approached my parents. Mom started crying. Caroline, please. Tell them this is a misunderstanding. I looked at her calmly. It's not a misunderstanding, Mom. You paid off a judge. Multiple times. For multiple cases. You corrupted the legal system because you couldn't accept that Grandpa's money was legally mine. Dad's face twisted with rage. You did this. You set us up. No, Dad. You did this to yourselves. I just documented it. Agent Morrison continued, we've also seized records from Caldwell Financial Services. Our forensic accountants have identified extensive securities fraud, tax evasion, and potential money laundering. There will be additional charges. Richardson and his co-counsel were backing toward the exit. Agent Morrison glanced at them. Gentlemen, we'll need your cooperation. You're not under arrest, but we have questions about what you knew regarding your client's relationship with Judge Brennan. Richardson's face went gray. The U.S. Marshals escorted Judge Brennan out first, still in his robes, hands cuffed behind his back. Then my parents, separated, each flanked by agents. Mom was sobbing. Dad walked in rigid silence, his jaw clenched. As they passed my table, Dad stopped. The agent beside him allowed it. You destroyed your own family, Dad hissed. No, I said quietly. You destroyed yourselves. I just refused to let you destroy me too. They were led away. The courtroom remained in shocked silence. Agent Morrison approached my table. Ms. Caldwell, we'll need you to come to the federal building this afternoon for additional testimony. Can you make 3 p.m.? Yes. Thank you for your cooperation. Your evidence was instrumental. She lowered her voice. And for what it's worth, I'm sorry it came to this with your family. I'm not, I said honestly. They made their choices knowing they were wrong. They just didn't expect to get caught. After the agents left, Catherine and I sat in the empty courtroom. The court reporter had fled. The bailiff stood uncertainly by the door. Catherine finally spoke. In 23 years of practicing law, I have never seen anything like that. What happens now? To the case. The case. She laughed, slightly hysterical. Caroline, there is no case. The judge is arrested, the plaintiffs are arrested, and every single allegation they made was fraudulent. The case will be dismissed immediately, probably by whatever judge gets assigned to clean up this mess. And my parents. Federal corruption charges carry serious prison time. Your father could be looking at 10 to 15 years. Your mother too, depending on her level of involvement. Plus, the IRS will be all over Caldwell Financial Services. That business is finished. I nodded slowly. I felt no triumph. Just a kind of hollow relief. Immediate consequences. The news broke within hours. Federal judge arrested in bribery scheme, led every Connecticut news outlet. My parents' arrest photos appeared on the evening news. Caldwell Financial Services offices were raided by federal agents, computers seized, files confiscated. By the next morning, 7 clients had filed lawsuits against Caldwell Financial. By the end of the week, the number was 23. The SEC opened an investigation. The IRS froze all company accounts. The business Dad had built over 30 years collapsed in 72 hours. Judge Brennan's cases were under review, over 200 decisions made during his time on the bench. Any case involving parties connected to my father would be re-examined. The Judicial Ethics Committee opened formal proceedings to strip Brennan of his pension and disbar him permanently. My extended family called, one by one. Cousins I hadn't spoken to in years. Aunts and uncles seeking explanations. Did you have to turn them in? My Aunt Helen asked. Couldn't you have just dropped the lawsuit? They corrupted a judge, I said. They paid bribes. They committed federal crimes. What would you have had me do? They a family. They sued me for money I legally owned and then tried to fix the case. Family doesn't protect you from the consequences of federal crimes. Most family members stopped calling after that. I didn't mind. Catherine and I appeared before the newly assigned judge, Honorable Maria Santos, 2 weeks later. She dismissed the case with prejudice and ordered my parents to pay $340,000 in attorney's fees and costs. Though I suspect, Judge Santos said dryly, collection may prove difficult given the defendant's current circumstances. My parents' trial was set for March. Their attorneys, court-appointed now, since their assets were frozen, negotiated a plea deal. Dad pled guilty to bribery, wire fraud, and tax evasion. Sentenced to 12 years federal prison. Mom pled guilty to conspiracy and wire fraud. Sentenced to 7 years. Judge Brennan went to trial, convinced he could win. He was convicted on 17 counts. Sentenced to 20 years. Caldwell Financial Services was liquidated. The remaining assets, after client restitution and legal fees, amounted to almost nothing. Resolution and epilogue. 6 months after the arrests, I sat in my office at Sentinel Analytics, now relocated to a larger space in Boston. We'd just signed a contract with a major European firm, $220 million over 5 years. Our company valuation had reached $380 million. My phone rang. Unknown number from a Connecticut area code. I answered. Caroline. Mom's voice, small and broken. Mom. They let me make a call. Before I start my sentence next week. She was crying. I wanted to say I'm sorry. I'm so sorry for what we did. For suing you, for the judge, for all of it. I said nothing. Your father won't apologize. He still thinks you betrayed us. But I know we were wrong. We got greedy. We got arrogant. We thought we were untouchable. You corrupted the legal system, I said quietly. You bribed a judge. You tried to steal from me using a rigged court. Those aren't small mistakes, Mom. I know. Her voice cracked. Do you think, in 7 years, when I get out, do you think we could talk? Could you ever forgive me? I looked out my office window at the Boston skyline. Thought about everything they'd done. Everything they'd been willing to do. I don't know, I said honestly. Right now, I can't. Maybe in 7 years, things will be different. But Mom? I'm not going to wait around to find out. I'm going to build my life, run my company, and be happy. With or without you in it. I understand, she whispered. I hope you use the time to figure out who you want to be, I said. Because the person who paid off a judge to steal from her own daughter? That person needs to change fundamentally before we can have any kind of relationship. I'll try. Goodbye, Mom. I hung up. My assistant knocked on the door. Miss Caldwell? The Forbes reporter is here for your interview. Right. The feature article about ethical leadership in tech. About building a company based on integrity and transparency. About the importance of doing business the right way. Send her in. The reporter was young, enthusiastic. She asked about my business philosophy, my approach to leadership, my vision for Sentinel Analytics' future. Near the end, she said, your family had a financial services company, didn't they? Caldwell Financial. Yes. There was some legal trouble. My parents and a judge were convicted of corruption. Federal bribery charges. She hesitated. Does that inform how you run your business? I thought about that. About watching my father's firm, seeing the corner cutting, the ethical compromises, the slow slide from legitimate business to fraud. Yes, I said. It taught me that short-term gains from unethical behavior always eventually cost more than they are worth. My parents gained money and favorable legal rulings. They lost their freedom, their business, their reputation, and their relationship with their only child. That's not a trade I'm willing to make. What would you say to them if you could? I'd say I'm sorry they made the choices they did. But I'm not sorry I reported them. Doing the right thing isn't always easy, but it's always right. The article ran 6 weeks later. It was fair, honest, and positioned me as exactly what I'd worked to be, an ethical business leader who valued integrity over profit. I never visited my parents in prison. They wrote letters sometimes. Dads were angry, accusatory. Moms were apologetic, hopeful. I read them but rarely responded. 7 years is a long time. Maybe when Mom gets out, we'll talk. Maybe we'll find a way forward. Maybe we won't. But either way, I'll be fine. Because I built something real, something legitimate, something that doesn't require corruption to succeed. I built it honestly, and no one can take it away. My parents thought connections mattered more than being right. They thought money could buy any outcome. They thought a bribed judge would protect them forever. They were wrong. And in the end, their friends in high places couldn't save them from the consequences of their own choices. I could have. If they'd been different people. If they'd valued their daughter as much as they valued winning. But they didn't. So I didn't. Justice isn't always satisfying. But it's always necessary. And watching those FBI agents walk into that courtroom? That was both.